During our revivals and camp meetings, it's become a custom that our ministerial department always invites the evangelist or evangelist. No, that's one. Is that one word or two? I was trying to say multiple evangelists,
That
but
sounded kind of funny.
it all sounds the same. Okay. Welcome to Union Bible College and Academy. I'm Adam Buckler. It's always been our practice at the close of camp meetings and revival to invite our evangelists up for a dinner together, and then at the close of that meal to allow our ministerial students to ask certain questions that would allow them to glean from their wisdom and years of experience. We're so glad today to have Reverend Harry Plank and Reverend Jeremy Fuller with us, as well as Sister Plank and Brother Gryle, our own Bible professor here at UBC. And we're going to invite these young people to ask some questions at this time.
Generational transitions are always dangerous times. And when we think about God's Word and generational transitions, we think of Moses and Joshua, and I always think of Elijah and Elisha as prime examples of successful generational transitions. Of course, they're in the Old Testament with Moses and then Joshua, and then it says that all of the elders that outlived Joshua served the Lord, but then there arose another generation that did not know the Lord. And with Elisha's case, and as with Joshua's case, they were very close to their predecessors. Moses and Joshua were very close. When Moses was getting the Ten Commandments, Moses was down the mount somewhere. Elijah, throughout his ministry, at some point, Elisha began to wash Elijah's hands. There was a close connection between the generations. And I think that a key for you fellas, and then I'll look at my own life and how over the last 20 years God has formed and fashioned me to make me the individual that I am today. I can't underestimate the importance of staying as close as you can to the generation that is in front of you, that has the fire, has the glory, has the power of God. There is a famous saying, and I believe that it may not be completely true, but has a lot of weight, and it should be considered. And that is that every individual in this room is an average of the 5 people that they spend the most time with. You know how to find an average. You add all 5 numbers, and then you divide it by 5. And to think that every one of us are an average, if there's any truth in that at all. Think about the 5 people that you're closest to, the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and then divide that by 5. That's who you are. One of the ways that you can be successful in helping to blaze the trail forward in our movement and across America is that you need to go back to the generation that has passed and get to know them. I remember when I was in Bible college, I didn't grow up in the mainstream conservative holiness movement. So I didn't know anything about Penview Bible Institute. I hardly knew anything about Union Bible College. I knew about God's Bible School, but didn't know Allegheny existed or Hope Sound. And so I'm not your typical guy that's grown up in a holiness church and knew all about the main conservative Bible colleges and so forth. But when I began to be exposed to the broader spectrum of the conservative holiness movement, I began to realize that there were preachers out there that had preached anointed sermons, and so I began to devour them. I began to get copies of those sermons, and I began to listen to them, and began to, in essence, spend time with those men, even though they were dead and gone, and I'd never known them or heard them preach in person. And I think that's so crucial that you learn to cultivate an affinity with the generation that is maybe even gone, or the generation that's in leadership now, that you learn to cultivate close relationships the best that you can. Brother Plank may not take your call every other day. If you call him, you may get weary of it. But, cultivate the best you can the relationship that God entrusts you with to learn what those men are like and what makes them tick, what makes them go, what's important to them, how they've achieved the success that they have, and thank God every day to make you real and keep you real.
We want to thank Brother Harry Plank and Brother Jeremy Fuller for sharing with our students and with you. And we invite you to join us again next week as these conversations continue.